where he makes these nutritional supplements and personal care products with some friends of ours from Portland. He toured them himself through it. And I just want to introduce Tom Mower Jr. and let everybody hear from him and learn from him today. Are you there, Tom?
I'm here.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Well, how are you doing today, Dani?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Doing really well. Beautiful day down here in Utah.
Is it? Oh, I'm jealous.
It is.
It's cold and windy here in Oregon. I'd like to be down in Utah today then.
I'll tell you what, though, you have some beautiful country up there, those mountains and the clean environment. I'll tell you what, it's the right place to get you in the right frame of mind.
Yeah, it is. I feel pretty lucky to live up here in this small area, especially with family and friends. It couldn't be better.
That's it.
Yeah. So, I just, again, want to thank you for taking the time, but I really have, we don't have a lot of time, so I just kind of want to dive right in.
You bet.
If you don't mind just sharing, you have devoted your life to this, what is referred to as the Mower mission, and to providing people with, like I said, effective products that actually work, that aren't, excuse my language, that aren't junk. That for me, I've learned so much from getting to know you and your family and your passion and your mission over the last year and a half, and really changed my mindset on how I think about even the grocery store now. I mean, I go in and I look on the shelf and it's like, oh no, there's just, I used to just not even think about what I bought and what was in it. And now I almost overthink it because I'm kind of dangerous and I know too much now because of the knowledge that you are so great, to share. So, if you wouldn't mind just sharing that mission real quick and how it started?
You bet. Why don't I tell you a little bit about it? I've been fortunate enough to not just been involved with it, but really grew up in what we call as the Mower mission. I have fortunate enough to have my father, Tom Mower Snr, who raised me, obviously, since the day I was born, and got my thinking in a way that there are answers to many questions out there. And my father back in high school had the highest score in the nation, aptitude for science. And so he's a real unique blend of scientific, but also sales and marketing. He's a real people person, as people who know him can identify with. But as I grew up in a very small farming community, we raised all of our own vegetables, and we canned our own products. We had a root cellar. We'd bottle and everything from jam to storing potatoes in root cellars to raising our own beef and chickens and pork. And so we understood the value of good nutrition. Well, on the flip side, we were manufacturing industrial chemicals. And now we know many of those things are very harmful. But, you go back into the early 70s and people really weren't really aware of what many things that were commonly used, from acetones, and you think back to lead-based paints, and at the time they were the industry standard. Right. But as science has come on, we have understood that there are.
Mr. Mower, I'm sorry, we're going to have to come back. So we're back with Mr. Tom Mower, and he is sharing how he actually grew up with this whole mindset of growing his own produce and canning and doing all those things. And I just love that because I didn't actually know that about you, Mr. Mower. And that's inspiring to me because I have the restaurant, Calderas, and we actually do all that and then serve it to the people that come in and have dinner at our restaurant. So I just think that's awesome.
There's always a need for good quality food out there.
Yeah.
And people respond well to that. But I grew up in, we grew up in a small farming community growing our own produce. But on the other side, we started a very small industrial chemical business that grew to be a very large industrial chemical business producing floor waxes and degreasers and automotive carburetor cleaners and hundreds of different items. Well, about probably 1984, OSHA came out to where you were going to receive material safety data sheets on each of your ingredients. And frankly, as a teenager, I looked at some of these, and it said that, well, you're going to have, if you're exposed to certain things, you'll have reproductive problems. And, you know, I thought maybe my kids were going to have 2 heads and 3 horns. I didn't know what was going to happen. And, and these are things I've been involved with for many years, too. Even though I had good nutrition, I was involved with industrial chemicals. And my father started looking at this, and he promptly went home, and he started looking at hair shampoos and lotions. And he said, well, we're using this in 4-wax. We're using this ingredient in degreaser, and here it is in color cosmetics. And so this is before the internet, so it was very difficult to find information. And so going to medical libraries and sending letters and getting information back and forth, we started to find out that going clear back to the 1920s, ingredients that are used in industrial chemicals that people weren't too concerned about were also used in cosmetics and personal care products, and even in nutrition. And in '84, when the material safety data sheets came out, and they started talking about endocrine disruptors and skin irritation and hair loss and losing fat in tissue, and then the ultimate, you know, many things were linked to cancer. And so my father basically went around with a hefty garbage bag and started throwing everything away in the house. And at some point we thought, what are we going to shampoo our hair with, Dad? And he said, you know what? We will make it the right way. And what we found is at that point, it put us on about a 25-year mission to bring us to this point, to where now we have a 400,000 square foot facility. And the first products we made for our family, and we made for friends. And then we found out that people were interested in good nutrition and in personal care products that were safe. And we found that there were very beneficial ingredients out there that weren't being used that could re-moisturize the skin. And there were nutritional products that were very effective in reducing antioxidants or producing antioxidants to remove free radicals. And so we started getting involved with nutrition and personal care, and we made the first products for ourselves that were preservative free. And they had a very, short shelf life, and we had to find out about packaging and processing of these things. And then we had companies eventually that started coming to us saying, hey, we hear you're doing something unique, and we want you to make a palette of a hair shampoo or a conditioner or a lotion for us that didn't have parabens in it or didn't have dioxanes or bisphenol A. And at first, the industry really was upset with us. We've been doing this for 80 years. How could you say that our process is not correct? Well, and then all of a sudden, scientific studies started showing up about what happens when hair shampoo goes into the sewer system and ends up in the river. Well, we know the St. Lawrence River up through Canada, beluga whales at some point don't reach sexual maturity because of the estrogen mimics that are in the water due to chemicals that are found in personal care products and industrial chemicals. And everything from that to breast cancer is linked to endocrine disruptors such as methylparaben, propylparaben. And so science has started to come forth, and with the internet, people now can get on PubMed, and the information is there that people can see basically that we weren't crazy 25 years ago in doing what we were doing. And people follow. What's that?
Yeah. Oh, I was just saying you were way before your time. I mean, you were leaders in that.
We were really the pioneers. We were on the Oregon Trail before anybody was there when it comes to personal care and beauty and cosmetics. And now we have a full color line of preservative-free, mineral-based color cosmetics. We have many things that people see in the media, such as resveratrol. There's been, hundreds of studies now, or actually thousands of studies on that, that show that there are great anti-aging effects that can be gained by taking resveratrol. But what we found is form and function and packaging and co-ingredients all play a very crucial role. You take something as simple as calcium. fact, there was a company here in Utah that was producing almost 50% of all the calcium here in America, and they're good friends of mine, and they had mountains of clam and oyster shells they were bringing in from the coast on railroad cars. And I asked him, I said, Mark, what's going on here? And he said, we grind them up and we press them in tablets and we send them out. And I said, well, how bioavailable is that? He said, it all comes down to price. And I said, what do you mean by that? And he said, people want to look on the label. There's 500 milligrams of calcium, and how much does it cost? Right. I said, yeah, but ground up oyster shells, is that really bioavailable? I mean, I guess take a clam shell to work and suck on it, but how much am I really getting out? And he said, people aren't really concerned about that. And this was probably 10 or 15 years ago. And so even in calcium, we go to milk. And milk, calcium, obviously mammals, that's where we, naturally get it from. And it has all the other minerals that should be associated with that. But then the cofactors that go along with that are you need vitamin K, or you are not going to absorb calcium. You need vitamin D, or you are not going to absorb calcium. It doesn't matter how much calcium you take without cofactors. And so all of our formulations were not based on just having an ingredient. We want the right form, we want the right cofactors, and we want it packaged correctly. And so resveratrol is an example of packaging. You need to limit the light that is exposed to, or it will change the stereochemistry of the active ingredient.
And
did you have a comment there?
Well, I was just going to ask on, you talk about resveratrol and you need and limit the light when you're making it, making the product itself.
Everything from when it's processed, when they're extracting it, to when we store it in our warehouse, to when we blend it, and to when it's packaged. And so everything's contained in closed vessels, closed containers, because UV light will actually change it from trans to cis, which is basically the configuration of the molecule, still resveratrol. In fact, if you go to buy those, there's about a 10-fold difference in price. And but one is bioavailable and one is not bioavailable. And so even when people go out there and they say, oh, I've heard about resveratrol, I've watched Oprah, I saw it on 60 Minutes, I've heard about Dr. Sinclair and the French paradox. Well, just because it says resveratrol does not mean that it is the right form. You need to have that in liquid form. Number one, the French paradox, where the studies came out of, that was all in liquid form. So we know historically that liquid was the form people were having lower cardiovascular problems and heart attacks and having the anti-aging effects of, lower cholesterol. And so we know liquid, and then through blood work, we see that it is absorbed many more times faster. In fact, 1 milligram in liquid, when held in the mouth, it takes 250 milligrams in capsule form to get the same equivalent of free resveratrol in blood. And so even though liquid is more difficult to blend and package, capsules are easy, we produce it in a liquid form because this is where we get the effect and the benefit is from the liquid form.
Right. Well, and I think that just to put a point out there, that's one of the reasons why I feel like, and I could be wrong, but you talk a lot about packaging and how products need to be effective. And I think that that's one of the things that actually helped our family and has helped so many other clients out there with different, maybe ailments that they have with their body by taking the nutrition, the supplements that you guys formulate is they're actually effective and they're in the highest quality. And I mean, just listening to you, you understand how to make those.
It's really quite basic.
It's not just like you said, that shell, that calcium shell.
You're right. But it's really quite basic. I think of, growing up on a farm, and my parents knew that I had to have, green beans and peas and carrots and strawberries, and good health comes in being broad. We see all of these companies come out with, pomegranate does everything, acai does everything, noni does everything. You know what? There is not just one silver bullet. Good health is twofold. abstinent, staying away from certain things that we know are harmful. And it's usually an accumulative effect. It could be in the packaging. It could be a byproduct of the plastic in the packaging. And after 80 years of using a hair shampoo that has a paraben or formaldehyde donor in trace amounts, well, it can have a detrimental effect over time on our body. And then in nutrition, we know that there's not just one superfood out there. I think resveratrol is incredible. But you know what? When I go home at night, I know that my kids need to have a meal that is healthy in many different components. I'm concerned about vitamins and minerals. And I tell people many times, your mother knows more about nutrition than most of these experts out there when she gives you a balanced diet. And, and you know, in your restaurant is that way. I was looking at some of the food that you're preparing there, the pictures, and I thought, you know what? Dani knows about good nutrition, and it's really quite simplistic.
Well, yeah, and I want to provide the best that I can for my family and the people that we serve, and so that's what I really appreciate about the Sisel nutritional supplements, as well as the personal care. I mean, my gosh, like I said, I used to spend $20 on a bottle of shampoo because this is just how shallow. Mm-hmm. I trusted the people who made it, and it had a green leaf on it. Right. It's just ridiculous. It's marketing, you know, and I just thought, oh, it's got a green leaf.
Well, and you're right, and that's typically what happens. They put 90 cents of every dollar into advertising and marketing to win your loyalty and your confidence.
Right.
And that's why we don't have our products on the retail shelf.
Yeah.
Because we want to do two things.
Well, Tom, we'll get back to that after these messages. We were just talking, and this is so fascinating to me, the marketing that we so often fall into without even questioning and thinking about it. And I just told Tom that I used to buy pretty expensive shampoo thinking that it was healthy for me simply because it had a green leaf on the front of it, and I got it from a salon. And he was just talking, and I'd just like you to continue, if you don't mind, on why it's so important.
You bet. Well, you look at how do we buy things. It's even in the nutritional supplementation. I see ingredients such as fucoidan, which most people have never heard about, but it doesn't have the media attention, but I see it every bit as beneficial as resveratrol. But the same thing in personal care, like shampoo, going and buying the top salon brand. What makes it the top salon brand is the sales and marketing efforts that are put behind it, not the chemistry. Because I've watched for many years when people look at a product, what do they do at first? They smell it, they look at it, they feel it.
Right.
And people are not concerned so much about ingredients, long-term effects, and you know what it's doing for their body. They're concerned about how fancy the packaging. And so that's why we sell our product. Our company name obviously is Sisel International, SISEL, and we have devoted to manufacturing products that are dynamic and spectacular in the results you receive, but equally as important, we don't have the potentially that formaldehyde donors, parabens, dioxanes, nitrosamines, benzenes, on and on and on. And it's been very unique in the fact we've had to develop staff and manufacturing practices and principles that are different than the industry. I've dealt with hundreds, if not thousands, of people involved in manufacturing over the years, and it's pretty much boilerplate on how processes go. And I've been around the world to many of these facilities, and they give you the standard, okay, you want so many kilos of this ingredient, and we'll check it for color, smell, taste, and that's about it. Here at Sisel, we have to check it for pesticides, residues, and basically hitchhikers on ingredients, because what I am buying, and you've seen a lot of this as people import from many of these countries overseas now, the industry's changing, and they're saying, oh, there's a lead contaminant in that product, or there's a bisphenol A has been in the media a lot lately. Well, 15 years ago, we were telling people about bisphenol A and the detriment and how it's found in children's toys and in many personal care products. Phthalates, that was a big one. And we have been developing ways to check for these ingredients and finding out, because in the processing of many ingredients, these can be small components that don't show up on a label.
Right.
And people are not going to brush their teeth and fall over dead by using those products, but there's an accumulation effect that takes a major toll on our health over time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to ask you this kind of a question. You brought up the fact that, resveratrol is wonderful, but fucoidan you feel is just as important. I put you on the spot real quick. If there was, because, we're in a time where people, we care about our health. We obviously want to be healthy because it's super important. And,
right.
And because of where we've come from disease to wellness in our life, we've actually talked to a lot of people who are sick. And it's that one product. What is, everybody kind of does want that one magic pill. And
they do.
So what product, if you had to choose one out of the 100 that you manufacture, what one would you
even beyond that in the world, I think it would be the resveratrol product. Twofold. One, I think you get dynamic benefit from it, but two, because people can become educated on it very quick to see what it's doing for their body. Because one thing we believe at Sisel is people need to be able to know. I don't want them just to get snowed by sales and marketing and fancy packaging. People can get on PubMed and on the internet, and they can find out all the dynamic benefits of resveratrol. It's a great antioxidant. It has catechins from green tea, which are very beneficial. It has quercetin in it, which is a real complementary ingredient for anti-aging. And so I'd have to say our Eternity product, resveratrol, would be the one product, and then the personal care products because of what they don't contain.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you. And so you said quercetin and those are, everything just is natural. There's no, so where does quercetin come from and resveratrol come from? And what's the source that you get that?
Well, muscadine grapes, will gain the resveratrol, but it can be found in many things. Peanut butter has resveratrol, and peanuts, and Japanese knotweed, and there's many sources, and it's really not so much the source as to make sure you have trans, because many times if people expose resveratrol to UV light and heat and how they process it, you'll end up with a lot of cysts, which is the mirror image of trans resveratrol. You want to have the right form. But there's many different, there's dozens, if not even more, sources of resveratrol. The most noted is obviously the red grape, which is where, the wine in France they were consuming, they were seeing all the benefits from. So we use that source. And quercetin can be found in apples and many other fruits and vegetables. And then it's getting it in a concentration that is beneficial. If you look at our Eternity product, you're getting about the equivalent in a dose of about 275 glasses of wine. But science has shown to get the anti-aging benefits of resveratrol, you need to have that amount of that product.
And it's also, like you said, the form, but there's when you say bioavailable, can you just on very layman terms explain exactly what that means?
Bioavailable would mean how much or is it usable? It would be like going into your restaurant and using a foreign currency. If you showed up with Russian rubles, you would say, well, I can't use that here. Well, our body's the same way. If I try and swallow a clamshell, I'm going to maybe get 1 or 2% calcium, even though that thing is made up of 90-some-odd% calcium. My body can't use that. But if I consume a high-grade calcium from milk or another source, my body will use that. And if I add other ingredients, such as vitamin D, vitamin K, magnesium, then it even increases my absorption to where I can get in that 90-95 percentile, which makes it bioavailable for my body. And so it's basically the currency that your body uses. And so form is huge when you're talking about nutritional supplements, because liquids versus tablets, some ingredients can be absorbed in the mouth, which can be more beneficial, because many times as we ingest things into our stomach, when they enter our system, then they can be metabolized in the liver, and so they never get out to our extremities and into our cells, so our body never uses them. This is one thing we like about a liquid form of resveratrol, and why I think the French were having such a benefit with it is because it was in a liquid form and it had a higher absorption rate and or bioavailability.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for answering that. I just wanted to make sure that people understand when they listen to this exactly what does that mean, because for new people who don't really, it's like the people who just buy the calcium and think, okay, great, I'm getting what I need.
Right.
It comes with that understanding that, wait a minute, maybe I'm not getting what I need, and what is the best source. And sometimes I took vitamins. Well, my husband and I, we're always kind of more wellness minded than anything. And before he was diagnosed with sarcoidosis, we spent a couple months doing cleanses and wellness formula and going to the health food store and trying all these different things. And I personally, haven't suffered with disease in my personal life as myself, but I've always taken a few supplements throughout my life, and really have to say that I couldn't tell, physically couldn't tell if they were helping or working until I actually started. Coiden for me was a huge one, because of one of the things I've suffered with was digestive problems. And I grew up my whole life having those, I kind of just thought, oh, this is just how it is. And I'm just going to be
the standard.
A gassy person. I mean, maybe too much information, and within a week, I totally, those symptoms were completely gone, and my family was much happier because of it, and I just didn't realize I think we live in such with it every day that we kind of almost start ignoring
it's like driving a car, and it has a thump or a rattle in it. If you drive it long enough, you get used to it. And then when you get in someone else's car, it's like, well, how come yours doesn't make that squeak or that noise? The same with our body. And it really comes down to two main things that people can take care of themselves, and that is oxidative stress and reducing inflammation. And those are two of the things that are linked to about everything from Alzheimer's to cardiac problems to brain function, that have a major effect. And so by taking and eating good fruits and vegetables that contain antioxidants or proper supplementation, our Spectra AO product, we have over 40 different sources of antioxidants in there, because we know that well over half of many of the diseases, in fact, some studies show up to 90-95%, are nutritionally based and have a component there because of not having proper nutrition. And so you're exactly right. If you find where you're out of balance in nutrition and then limiting the environmental factors that cause those problems, your health is going to benefit because of it.
Yeah, and when we come back, we have a break coming up here, but when we come back, I'd love for you to explain maybe those are another key terms that we all hear: oxidative stress and free radicals, and what does that mean, and why isn't there a noni or an acai? Just take one, drink palm every day, and we can all get healthy and better and never be sick. So we'll talk about that more with Mr. Tom Mower Jr. when we return after these. So we're here with Tom Mower Jr. talking about nutrition and oxidative stress and free radicals and all these terms that we hear going through, the internet or whatever, or just at the health food store. It's like the keywords that are on all the packaging. And so I just wanted to ask him to explain to us what oxidative stress and free radicals are, and some things that we can do to help our body fight those. How they affect us. How do they affect our body? What happens?
Well, Dani, basically our body's rust, and it's kind of a hard concept to imagine, but It really is. When you talk about rust on a piece of metal, that is an oxidative reaction from a chemical standpoint that is taking place. And really it happens to our body too. Every day, every cell of your body is coming into contact with different components that are called free radicals. But it's not just one. And, I think of, when I was growing up, everybody, it was take vitamin C. And right. Vitamin C is great. But vitamin C will take care of only a certain class of free radicals. And so this is where getting back to proper nutrition or proper supplementation is very important, because when we see just the nonis and the acais and the mangosteens and these single ingredients out there, you bet they are good, and you bet they will take care of a certain portion of different types of free radicals, because every day our bodies are under assault, basically. And as we age, it basically speeds up, because we have an accumulation effect of things that are stored in fat and maybe poor health. And when we are in poor health, obviously our defenses are down, and then we're even prone to more oxidative stress. And so when we look at good nutrition, and typically I think everybody would agree, people who eat a balanced diet, people who get more rest, more sleep, people who have less stress in their life, typically are healthier. That's a fair statement, I think.
Yeah, I think
and so it's pretty basic. So what does our body do when our cells are under attack by maybe we live next to a big factory and we're inhaling air every day that's full of nitrosamines and carbon monoxide, and all these are free radicals, and there are thousands of them. Well, you're right, vitamin C might take care of a few of those, and acai might take care of a few of those, and mangosteen might take care of a few of those. But if you'd have resveratrol and catechins from green tea and raspberries and currants and cauliflower and broccoli, and the list goes on, you have many more arrows in your quiver, per se, that you can neutralize these free radicals, and your bodies can be healthier because of that. And that's where I say many times our mothers knew more about nutrition than many experts, and say, just take this one superfruit and it'll do everything for you. Well, that's not the case. But then equally, why don't we eliminate things? We know that many preservatives work on the fact that they release small amounts of formaldehyde, and they kill the bacteria and the yeast and the mold that might grow in a hand lotion or a color cosmetic or personal care product. Well, at Sisel, we eliminate those potentially harmful ingredients, because we know when they're absorbed into our bodies, they do damage our cells. And there's many things like propylene glycol and mineral oil and glycerin that maybe don't cause cancer or have those effects, but they take moisture out of our skin, and they can have detrimental effects that way. So getting away from potentially harmful ingredients and taking proper nutrition will help us with oxidative stress. Mm-hmm. And then inflammation is equally important. That's a response that our immune system, when our bodies are under attack and we have a free radical, our body immune system turns on, and it sends out different cells and enzymes to attack these free radicals. Well, we get what we call an inflammatory response, and that's what our body tries to encapsulate this foreign entity that's in our body and destroy it and remove it. And there are many, many studies now out there that show that if we can control inflammation in our system and oxidative stress, we can slow down the process of aging, and we can live a much healthier life, especially in our later years, if we can control that earlier, because there's a very strong link to inflammation and oxidative stress when it comes to aging and health.
And so can I just real quick, I want to share just really quick, you brought up a really good point. It kind of jogged my memory on my grandma's 90 years old and she has suffered migraines her entire life. And like, not just like a one day, I've had migraines too, where it's one day and I'm vomiting and all the lights need to be out. Nobody talked to me. And that hers would go on for 3 or 4 days. And, you know, they would give her all the pain. She's tried all of it, pain medication. It just wouldn't touch it. And, so last November, I brought her a bottle of the resveratrol supplement, Eternity. And I just said, hey, you know, take it. And for literally, actually, I must have brought it to her in September, because for 2 months I would come over there and I'd be like, Grandma, you're not taking this, you know, could just take a tablespoon a day, just see if it'll help. And she started taking it in November. It was in September, because last Thanksgiving we were up at my mom's house and we're all having dinner together. And my grandma grabs my husband Jack and she's like, she doesn't even know the name of it. She's so cute. She's like, that stuff really works. I haven't had a migraine since I started taking it. And it has almost been a year, you know, a week from now. And she still has not suffered a migraine.
Oh yeah, there is power in good nutrition.
Amazing.
Oh, yeah. And I hear benefits of many different things, and everything from skincare to from headaches and migraines when people get their body back in balance. And it's a hard thing for people to realize because it just seems so simple. But you look at statistically over the last 100 years, you know, we had 1 in 100 people that would have cancer back at the turn of the century, you know, in the late 1800s. And now we have 1 in 2, 1 in 3 in many areas, and we can see that the more industrialized a country is, the higher rates of disease and cancer. And because what are we doing? We're introducing foreign substances to our bodies in the air, in the water, in personal care, and in nutrition. And if you go to South America and Africa, you see many of these diseases, and cancer rates are many, many times lower because they're not exposed to all the different things that we're exposed to here. But it sounds like up in Joseph, Oregon, it sounds like things are pretty pristine.
They really are. I mean, in a community with 7,500 people in the entire county, you know, we don't produce a whole lot of emissions or, you know.
That's great.
Yeah, the worst thing here probably is in the winter because we all burn wood. So it does, you know, tend to get a little, I know my girlfriend who has asthma, she has the hardest time in the winter because of all the wood burning. But other than that, it's a beautiful place with, you know, lots of pristine, the deepest glacially made lake in the United States. And it is gorgeous.
It sounds beautiful. Sounds like the right place for Sisel products.
Yes,
I'd like to.
It is. It's the right place to get people healthy because even though we're in a pristine environment, there's still sick people here. And, you know, and that's one of the things that Jack and I have had so many conversations about because we look at our, you know, growing up, we did the same thing. My mom always had a garden. She canned, she cooked fresh. We didn't eat boxed foods. My friends would come over and have dinner. I mean, obviously she has a restaurant, so she loves to cook. And my friends would come over and they'd just be like, you know, dying. Oh my gosh, that was the best meal I've ever had. And so that's how I was raised. And he wasn't raised that way. He did eat a lot of boxed food and do those things, but
well, we're exposed to it all the time in processed foods now, and that's why we need powerful supplementation. And the science is there, and, you know, I love science, and thank goodness for it, because it shows us what works and what doesn't. And by researching the research out there, we have found effective ways for people to have that good health, because no matter where you go, you're going to be exposed to processed foods and over-preserved foods, and we're going to be deficient. I mean, we are a, you know, Big Mac society now. We want to drive through one window and pay and drive the next window and have our meal right there. To go home and peel carrots and snap beans, we just don't do it anymore, but we can see the results of it after, you know, 100 years on this roller coaster. We can see diseases up, and, you know, we produce thousands more chemicals that are foreign to our bodies. So how do we get back to the basics is really what it is. And, we've developed those type of products that people can have powerful antioxidants through natural supplementation.
Right. And do you really feel, I kind of feel the more more I learn, I mean, I know very little compared to you. Do you feel like that we're really in a place now where we really need to supplement because we're just not getting the nutrients we need from our food anymore? Like, is that really the next step? Yeah.
And that information has been out there. If you get on with the Department of Agriculture, you look at the government websites on the tests on topsoil and agriculture, you will see that vitamins and minerals and nutrients in food have declined over the last 100 years or so. You can see that in many cases, a fruit or vegetable is 80 or 90% deficient in the nutrients that we need compared to 75 or 100 years ago. And we can see the topsoil is a fraction of the depth that it used to be. When these plants are cultivated in this soil year after year after year, well, what does a farmer do? He gets paid upon the weight, the size, and the look. If we paid a farmer based upon the fiber, the vitamins, the calories, it would be a different ballgame, wouldn't it?
Yeah, we would be a lot healthier people. And Tom, we only have 1 minute, and I'm so bummed because I know there's so many. I'd love to just sit here for 8 hours and ask you all these fun questions and learn so much. But I just want to thank you. I want to say happy Thanksgiving to you and your family, and just appreciate the time that you've taken today. And I for all the people listening out there, I know you've learned a ton, and hopefully this won't be the last time you'll be on the show as a guest.
Well, Dani, thank you so much, and I hope it's not either. I'd love to be back on your show.
Yeah, that'd be great. We look forward to it. And like I said, have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and thank you for spending the time with us on the midweek Wednesday, and enjoy the sunshine for me down in Utah.
I will. I'll be thinking
All
of you.
right. Thanks so much.
Have a good day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Thanks everybody for listening. This is Dani Walker inviting you to come back next week, and we'll talk Thanksgiving.
Thank you for being a part of Come Learn With Me with Dani Walker. Each Wednesday, Dani will ask you to get your boots on and walk through life's triumphs and troubles with her. Come Learn With Me is the beginning of a movement, a community filled with caring people who share information, allowing everyone to participate